All right. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. My name is Janeli, and today I want to talk to you about loneliness. Loneliness is something all people experience sometime in their life. I'm willing to bet that all of you that are listening to me right now have experienced it sometime in their life, and I know I have. But for some people, it isn't just a brief encounter. It becomes a chronic condition, something they carry with them secretly all the time, often experienced but rarely talked about. I want to be close to people, but I feel like a burden. I feel like a ghost. Everyone else seems to know how to socialize. What's wrong with me? These are some of the little snippets of the stories that I've heard when working on this project. So in my master's thesis, I wanted to explore how we could mitigate loneliness by using behaviorally guided interventions. My supervisors were Carol Dickerberry and Lauren Kelly. But first, let's get on the same page about what is loneliness. Because loneliness is often confused with solitude. The words even in Estonian are very similar, but they are very different feelings. Although both are subjective experiences, solitude is considered a positive experience. It's a time to reflect and rewind. However, loneliness is the subjective experience of being alone that is highlighted by a lack of meaningful social connection and a sense of wanting to escape that emotional pain. And that just doesn't end with emotional pain. Chronic loneliness is now considered an emerging health epidemic by the World Health Organization. And to illustrate how detrimental it can be to a human body, it can be compared to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness is often talked in the context of elderly, but interestingly, Estonian data shows that the most reported lonely age group is people aged 16 to 24. As almost every other person in that age group reports feeling lonely almost always or sometimes very often. Additionally, when looking into the research on the topic, loneliness doesn't stop there. The late 20s is also considered a high-risk time period, as it comes with multiple life stages where people often experience the dissolving of long-standing old relationships from adolescence as their life and priorities change. As such, leaving out the younger part of emerging adulthood due to ethical concerns, I concentrated on the age group 20 to 29, and I looked into the context of Tallinn, which led me to my research question, which is how might we design an intervention that helps initiate small, achievable actions that increase social connectedness for young adults aged 20 to 29 who live in Tallinn and experience loneliness. But this raised an interesting question to me. This is an age group that is very active in society, and thus they should have plenty of opportunities to connect and mitigate loneliness on their own. So what's missing? A main insight from my work was that opportunities don't immediately mean action, something we heard from the previous presentation as well, because the path is rarely straightforward, and there really isn't a map somebody gives us how to do these things. So I took it as a goal to explore how to bridge the gap between intention and action. And to do that, I included a strong behavioral design lens and to look into the capabilities and motivations of the target group as well. This allowed me to not only look into the main and rather abstract symptom, which is loneliness, but also the individual and structural layers that contribute to loneliness-related behaviors. The design followed a behavioral design lens, which moved through the process of exploring the target group's behaviors in order to identify actionable intervention points. And this led me to my design solution proposal, which aims to lower the emotional and cognitive friction of social connection by offering achievable small steps they can take in order to move towards their desired behavior. But let's not get ahead of us. In order to get here, it was important for me to work through both the process of empathizing with the target group to really understand where their pains come from, as well as mapping out the appropriate strategies. So understanding what creates the gap and then finding how we could bridge that gap. First, in order to empathize with the target group, I conducted an online study with almost 40 participants. 39 to be exact, that revealed common themes across the wider group. So what people were doing, feeling, and struggling with. Then I used a design probe study where 3 individuals self-documented their experiences over 4 days, because that allowed them to answer at the time that they were actually feeling loneliness instead of reflecting back to it by using journaling methods and drawing. This method gave me a more intimate look into the emotional rhythms of loneliness as it unfolded in their days. Both of these processes were supported by expert interviews, which helped me to manage the emotional safeguarding of the vulnerable participants. I then analyzed the data to find themes that uncover deeper emotional and behavioral patterns, which I then layered the COM-B model, which, if you don't know, is looking into behavior by analyzing the capability, opportunity, and motivation, which all combine if the person is able to do the activity or not. The aim was to identify the internal and external blockers that keep people stuck in loneliness, even when they want to connect. And that led me to the 4 behavioral archetypes, and let's look into them now. They are the tired initiator, anxious avoider, click seeker, and guidance seeker, and they all capture important patterns of behaviors, attitudes, motivations, pain points, and goals between different individuals. The first one being the tired initiator. The tired initiator archetype collects the individuals or covers the individuals who are actually very socially active. They are able to initiate plans and check-ins, but they feel they get insufficient responses, which makes them feel disappointed. And right now, they keep up with the same behavior loop, but at one point, there is the possibility that they will start to withdraw. What illustrates them is the emotional fatigue. As one person shared, it gets so exhausting that I lose motivation to try. Yes, I can make plans and keep the conversation going, but it's emotion draining when it all comes only from me, because that makes me feel like a burden. The second archetype is called the anxious avoider, and is illustrated by an anticipation of rejection before they even reach out. So they fear rejection and awkwardness, which makes them avoid action or be passive, which is good for short-term strategy, but in the long run will also make them withdraw more. Their behavior is illustrated by social anxiety and avoidance. As another person shared, whenever someone asks me something about myself, I feel so embarrassed that I can only give very superficial answers. I feel like I don't know how to be human, and as a result, it has been almost impossible for me to form any kind of close connection with anyone. The third archetype describes individuals the click seeker, who anticipate an emotion click either from people that they have just met, but also from the people that they know for a long time. And if the anticipation and the reality don't match, they feel unseen and discouraged, which then again, in the long run, can lead them to withdrawal, which can lead to loneliness. This archetype is illustrated by discouragement due to unrealistic expectations. As one person shared, I do try to interact with people, but I don't get close with them. They remain just co-workers or people you see at school, and you don't stay in touch or talk to them afterwards. We don't get past small talk. And lastly, the last archetype that emerged from my research is the guidance seeker, who is illustrated by a desire to connect, but not really knowing what to do, so they delay and avoid the action until the point where they are unable to do it due to having low motivation. In those cases, they start to engage in distractions such as doom scrolling, eating, sometimes substance abuse, until the feeling is resolved, and then they will continue the behavior loop. And they also are in risk of withdrawing in the long run. They are illustrated by cognitive ambiguity around the next steps to take. And a quote from a person who was identified as this archetype is, when I get lonely, it feels like I get just stuck in my mind. So instead, I just distract myself, sometimes with food and doom scrolling, other times with alcohol or weed. So as we can see, there are many things that can sidetrack the goal of mitigating loneliness on their own, so the path really isn't that linear. After learning that, I wanted to find an appropriate strategy to work with the main behavior loops and pain points that different archetypes are struggling with. So work through mapping out their current behavior and their desired behavior and how feasible different interventions could be, considering both the individual level as well as the systemic level of the intervention. And understood that the most feasible approach would be to offer them manageable small changes and quick progression by simplifying the process using the success kit behavioral strategy. That is, giving people what they need when they need it, the skills and the tools to move towards their desired path, one manageable step at a time. And to find out what are the manageable steps, I conducted a co-creation session with 5 participants in the target group to understand what they are feeling, missing, what's blocking them from currently approaching different challenges. And throughout the co-creation session, I discovered 6 behavior progressions that the target group could benefit from in order to mitigate loneliness, which I will not read, you can see that. And I used them to create missions, which is what I called the small achievable steps or behavior levers that could create the change pathway towards a more desired outcome. As such, this intervention starts as the initiator, so that the individuals in target group who often are a little bit demotivated don't need to have the high emotional capability to start changing their behavior. It offers them small gradual wins that would keep the momentum going, and it helps them regulate emotions if things don't go too well. Also, if things go well, it helps them cherish it. And when they continue doing it, it increases their social perseverance and their natural skill sets. And in the end, hopefully, this tool would become obsolete when they have achieved what they have desired. As such, the very unclear path that we saw before is now designed for them with manageable steps that they can take. Keeping in mind the scope of the project, the age group of the target group, as well as the ease of use and accessibility, I opted for a digital intervention. But let's see that intervention in action.
We've all had those moments.
Uh-oh, technical difficulties. I wonder if I click it from. Yeah.
We've all had those moments where we feel lonely and want to reach out, feel part of something. But the steps between wanting connection and actually doing something about it, that can feel overwhelming. The road is rarely straightforward. And when you're feeling lonely or unsure, it's even harder to take that first step. Through our research with young adults in Tallinn, we learned that loneliness often isn't about opportunities to connect. It's about feeling like you don't know how to connect. That's why we created Ripple, a micro-interactions app designed to gently guide you towards social connection, one manageable action at a time. Guided by behavioral design, Ripple meets you where you are. During onboarding, it helps you define your comfort and energy levels, so you never feel pushed too far. At the core of Ripple are the missions, small intentional actions that make connections feel more achievable. They aren't random suggestions, but backed by specific behavioral insights. The missions are categorized into themes, like no fuss initiating or making someone's day. And whether the goal is reducing friction for socially anxious people, building momentum through small wins, or activating kindness as a connector, the goal is always to make connection easier, lighter, and more natural. One of our most loved missions by testers is called Mini Mission Together. A lot of people feel like reconnecting means planning something big, an event. Mini Mission Together flips that. Instead of planning, the app suggests you to send someone a message. Hey, want to do a mini mission together? It's a playful, no-pressure way to reconnect. No overthinking. Just a tiny shared moment that can spark something bigger. Another loud mission taps into something deeper. acts of kindness, and creative surprise. In gifting and crafting is fun, you're invited to make a small handmade gift or card for someone. Doing something playful and unexpected often opens the door to new conversations.
The missions always had a bigger reaction than I had expected. I walked away a little surprised that something so small could matter so much.
Each mission ends with a short guided journaling reflection to support you through the process of establishing what worked, or being gentle with yourself if things didn't go exactly as planned. Every action you take causes a virtual flower garden to grow, to visualize the progress you're doing. Because progress can take time to see, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. After all, it's not about becoming someone you're not, but instead getting where you desire to be. Because connection isn't built in one big leap. It's about making tiny ripples, small changes that slowly build confidence, connection, and tools to deal with loneliness over time.
Uh-oh. All right. To reiterate the final design, here's the scheme of the main behavioral loop. So pre-mission framing, which creates a safe ground and shows how these can work. Time commitment nudge to keep the momentum going. After the mission has been finished, post-mission check-in, which, if the experience was positive, reinforces automatic motivation through self-kindness. And if the experience was negative, then it helps to regulate emotions instead of ruminating. Also, it includes a progression logic, so the missions unlock slowly. For example, active listening, which is easier than self-disclosure, will happen before self-disclosure because it builds psychological safety and trust in the process. The onboarding maps each person's social energy, comfort, and behavior starting point to suggest manageable next steps. For example, someone less comfortable socially might again get active listening missions. I mentioned that already. After onboarding, users get 3 low-effort, slightly unusual missions designed to spark interest and offer quick emotional rewards. Each also includes a short how this can help and short experiences section to explain and normalize the actions that they're taking, as well as adding a bit of social proof. Accepting missions includes picking a time commitment to keep the momentum going. After completing a mission, users go through a short self-reflection to support emotional regulation and skill learning. First, they rate their experience, then select emotions to gain clarity without feeling overwhelmed. Negative experiences trigger a reframing journaling prompt, and positive ones invite to towards gratitude to build motivation. And progress is shown as a growing flower garden. In order to visualize the potentially slow emotional process, the progress view has included a flower garden element, not as a gamification tactic, but instead as a gentle visual to give feedback that they are actually moving towards their desired goal, especially on the days when motivation is low. This could help them reflect that slow process is still a process. Each flower represents a completed mission, and by tapping on it, the individual can revisit the self-reflection they wrote at the time to help reconnect with experiences and small wins. And lastly, when they feel more confident, they can choose freely between newly suggested missions or those that they have saved. This mechanic is added to guide them towards taking ownership of the process into their own hands, so that they would in the future not need to use this framework anymore. This concept was first validated by a low-fidelity prototype, which was tested over 5 consecutive days with 5 participants from the target group. They were told in the beginning that they are under no obligation to finish these missions, but if they did, I asked them how it went, and if they didn't, then why they didn't do it. All missions had over 80% adherence, which validated to me that they have at least the potential to actively reduce loneliness. And people shared stories how these little missions brought them out of autopilot and actually made them connect with people more. bringing examples how something that usually is a 30-second refill turns into a 20-minute banter, or initiates new invitations. To refine the visual approach, I created 2 high-fidelity prototypes for A/B testing, one as a standalone app and the other as an integration into an existing messaging platform. 5 participants again tested the interactive versions in real-life contexts. And here again, 80% preferred the standalone app, citing the issue of trust as the main reason. The integration into any platform made them feel like it can't be as much trusted as a standalone application, which is a sensitive topic when it comes to loneliness and vulnerable people. Now, talking about future considerations. I am not a psychologist, I am a designer. So I believe in order to continue working on this project, it would need to have another level of experts included, because their input can ensure each level of mission is appropriate, safe, and matches the emotional and social demands that individuals in vulnerable states need. I also believe that to further validate the behavioral insights, the next phase could involve additional testing, for instance, a 4-week beta test with around 30 participants, which would also include the UCLA loneliness scale, which is the standard way to measure loneliness. While this intervention currently supports individual behavior, it's important to remember that behavior does not exist in a vacuum. It's instead shaped by broader social and systemic contexts. For long-term impact, future development should also look outward towards building supportive communities and structural layers. For instance, this could include environmental queuing through public infrastructure, for instance, adding the emissions into urban spaces to have a little bit of a trigger point before they get into the framework, and also structural support in academic settings by promoting interaction strategies through, for instance, educational collaboration. And lastly, the intervention Ripple wasn't designed to stay with the individual forever. It was designed to fade out as the user builds the emotional habit and self-trust to navigate social life without it. And I believe this is one of the most important parts of the project. From the beginning, the project is about habit design, creating small actions, emotional feedback, and visual progress that can lead the people that are currently unable to approach their desired outcome towards it. So unlike some solutions that might want to keep users hooked, this solution is very strongly moving towards designing to become obsolete. And I believe this is something to also work through more if one would consider to continue with this project. So in conclusion, the solution is a behavioral archetype-informed micro-interactions app that aims to lower the emotional and cognitive friction of social connection for young adults by offering achievable small steps. And as the last note, I do want to thank my supervisors, the faculty, the reviewer for the feedback, the jury who is here, and also mostly the participants who were willing to be vulnerable and share their lived experiences with me, because without them, I couldn't have done this project. So thank you.